Okay, this is Chapter 5 in your Teaching Children to Read textbook by Wrights on Cooter. This is for REA 324. And so we're starting out with a discussion on reading fluency. So please, again, read through this chapter. Be sure to take your quiz or do any other assignments I may have given you. The first piece that we want you to know, if you go back and look at the beginning of Chapter 5, there's a list of vocabulary terms that you need to know. They're very important. And one of those pieces that we need you to know about is the term automaticity. This term is one where it implies that the human mind, which is kind of like a computer in some ways, is limited in ability to shift attention between the parallel processing of decoding, that's where you're sounding out the words, and comprehending, where you're thinking about the meaning. Okay? So automaticity is how quickly you can put the decoding together or recognize, in other words, those individual sounds together, or recognize sight words and read them and recall them automatically, more like a computer. Okay, so it's kind of like riding your bike. They say you get on it and you can do it again after you've not done it for so long, but or driving home, for instance, would be a good example. If you drive home without even thinking about how you get home, you just do it automatically. Well, automaticity is like that. We want children to be able to read automatically, okay? Be able to see words and say them quickly with a good speed, okay? And with a good prosody, so we'll get into that in a minute. But do know that these readers who are poor decoders, they focus too much attention on sounding out the words or pronouncing the words, so they really can't comprehend. So you want them to be able to recall those words automatically and quickly so that they can focus on the comprehension, not the decoding process. So automaticity is when you can automatically say those words and focus on comprehension rather than decoding and sounding out words. Now, your book is full of research. I want you to highlight the research, look at the research. You're going to need to know that information. We will discuss that in class, okay? But thinking about what research says about fluency, here's some characteristics, okay, or how it's characterized. One, it should be accurate. In other words, you're reading the words the way they're supposed to be, not messing up or reading it incorrectly. It's accurate. Effortlessly, so they're not taking too much time to say the word. They can say it quickly. And again, that automatic word identification, okay? And even with it being quick, again, you're looking at their face or looking at how much effort they're putting in. Those are key pieces. That accurate, effortless, automatic word recognition, okay? And then the second piece, age or grade level appropriate reading speed or rate. There are rates of speed that are appropriate for certain grade levels, okay? And so it helps give us a measure to know where a student should be reading. That doesn't mean they'll perfectly hit that speed, or they may be above or below, but it gives you a good idea of what you need to be working on, or if their rate of speed is low, that they are not able to comprehend as well, potentially. Now, I've had a few students who were full of errors and could comprehend perfectly, so that is also possible. Also, number 3, suitable use of volume, pitch, juncture, and stress in the voice, okay? These students need to know exactly how loud to read, that they're not reading too loud or too soft. You'll have both. Or pitch even. Is it monotone? Are they raising their voice? Are they lowering their voice? Also the juncture, okay? When do you pause in your sentences after commas and different things like that? And then the stress. What do you stress? Because when you say I hate you, according to what you stress, I hate you or I hate you, it changes the meaning behind it, okay? So the students that really are fluent know what words to stress and when. They know when to pause. They know when to raise their voice up and down if it's a question or a statement, those types of things, okay? And then number 4, correct phrasing, sometimes called scooping or chunking. Again, when you're reading a sentence, students know when to kind of phrase things together before going on, or when to take a breath and those types of things, rather than reading the whole sentence through and through and not taking a deep breath, kind of like I'm talking right now, okay? So we'll practice some chunking in class, so do read over that a little bit in your text as well. Again, read the whole chapter, but look back over that so you're familiar with it. And then there are some classroom assessments I want you to be familiar with. One happens to be the words correct per minute, and that measures their reading fluency rate, okay? It's more about the speed, how many words they miss, that type of thing. Number 2, there's the DORF. I actually call it DIBELS, but the DIBELS Oral Reading Fluency Test. Now, DIBELS has different types of oral fluency tests according to the age range, okay? So in, say, kindergarten, it might be a letter naming fluency test or a sound for individual letters rather than reading words. It could be a sight word test, or not even just sight word, but being able to recall words quickly, okay? Then it's also reading sentences and stories, nonfiction, fiction, both, text, okay, and at what rate they will say those things. So DIBELS has a range of fluency tests according to the needs of the students. I will bring DIBELS in so you can see it in class and practice with it. Then there is another scale. We don't use this often, but it's the multidimensional fluency scale. This looks at expressive reading, so it's actually a rubric that allows you to rate how well a student is doing as far as their juncture, their expression goes, okay? Because I've had students, for instance, that read perfectly, but it was I say perfectly, it wasn't perfect. They got the rate of speed, they got the accuracy, but the expression wasn't there. They weren't comprehending what they were reading. So this scale allows for many different pieces that sometimes the DIBELS does not. And then if you're looking at a self-assessment piece, you can, developing metacognitive awareness and fluency is very important. And so often students can partner or even themselves time themselves in reading a piece. They may not say mark errors, but they could time themselves in a piece that they're practicing, even a poem, and see if they can read it faster each day or each week. And so there is this awareness or self-assessment that students can have and do along with fluency so that they can see if they're getting better, because the more they read, the more they practice, the better they will be. Unless, of course, they have dyslexia like Emily Kate, and that's a whole nother process. But also, some good characteristics of effective fluency instruction, keep these in mind. You absolutely have to model reading fluency, okay? So you need to show them how, you need to show them what it looks like, okay? And that means read something for them, show them, explain what's good, show them what's not good as well. And then provide reading practice for them. That could be poems, it could be stories, it could be their weekly work, but there's many things that they can read and different types of practice that you can provide for them, okay? And we'll talk about some different methods that go with that, or strategies that will work well. You also want to provide access to appropriately challenging reading materials. If everything you have for them to read is above their reading level, they can't increase their fluency. When you're talking about fluency, students really need to be reading more on their independent reading level, okay, to increase. Now, that doesn't mean the bottom, but you do need to find where they read independently and be sure that they're reading there to increase the fluency. You might could go up just a little bit, but you definitely don't want to get to frustration level, okay? The instructional level could be okay, but you don't want it too far into the instructional level because, again, they're really working on the speed and the rate so that they can focus on comprehension. And then you'll use oral reading or some silent reading. You can also work on fluency a little bit with silent reading, but it's a different task. And then monitoring and accountability is very important. They need to see, you could even create charts where they see that their fluency is moving up, or maybe it moved down once so they realize they should be practicing more, okay? But it's important that you monitor it and even that they can see it as well. A few more, you also want to have your fluency instruction time allocation there, so you must build it into your program, into your lessons, okay? It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you could have different practices at different times. It could be built into your centers. I love building it into centers or group or partner activities, okay? But the point is you must allocate time for it and focus on it. I used to think that, oh, I'm hitting vocabulary, I'm doing all these things with my students, they can read quite well, and then I started testing their fluency and realized, oh wow, they're a lot slower than I expected, but now I didn't tell them that they needed to be reading faster either. So again, there's a time and a focus that should be spent on fluency, and so I failed at that early on and had to really work on that. One of the pieces is you need to use repeated reading. They need to read some text several times, lots of times, okay, so that they can increase their fluency. It's not just about reading a text for the first time and that shows their fluency. Practicing something over and over will help. Also wide oral reading, reading many different types, because again, reading a nonfiction piece is a lot harder or different than reading a fiction piece. They need to be exposed to many different types of reading. Some of the evidence-based strategies, there are many in your book, okay? So we'll talk about those in class, but you do want some fluency-oriented reading instruction. You can do some choral reading with that, where you all read together. You can also do some echo reading, where you say or read something and then they say it right after you with the same tone, the same pause as you did. There's also partner or paired reading that works really well for the fluency, as well as scaffolded silent reading. And with that, we used to do just SSR, silent sustained reading. But be cautious. There needs to be scaffolding. You need to be giving them specific things to work on. You need to be checking with them, because if they're practicing without you checking on them or giving them the specific scaffolds, then they could be practicing something wrong and not getting any better, and you don't want that. When looking at differentiation, there are many things to do for your struggling students. You will have students with many different diverse needs. And so one of the pieces that works is the neurological impress method, and I think, I haven't read about NIM in a while, but I believe you're reading, the stronger reader reads near the ear of the struggling reader, and they start out stronger and they lighten up their voice as the struggling reader starts to pick up more of the reading. So you can read more about NIM, but it is very useful, especially for your struggling readers. And then your English learners, they benefit by similar instructional strategies as your struggling readers, as well as your native speaking readers, okay? So when it comes to fluency, many of the strategies you use for the rest of your class will work well for them as well. Now be careful. There are strategies that do not promote fluency. Round robin reading does not promote fluency. It doesn't say that on the slide right here. That's exactly what the book will tell you. I will tell you, any strong reading educator would tell you that as well. So I'm going to know whether or not you read the book if you come into class and tell me that round robin reading is a great way to increase fluency. It is not, okay? So round robin reading is when you go around the room, the student, they read their paragraph, next student reads the next paragraph, and all they're doing, they're not listening, comprehending, they're not paying attention to many different things. But round robin reading is not good for much, okay? But it could be used in a few pieces and instances, but I will not recommend it for anything. But anyway, at least not in that order. Your book may give a few suggestions that modified. And then there's Reader's Theater. Now, Reader's Theater is a great way for students. It's kind of like giving them a play to act out, and they practice their lines over and over and over. Guess what? They're reading over and over and over again. That's that repeated reading, but it puts it in a fun manner, and they don't even realize how much they're learning from it. Radio reading is another very good method, so read more about that in your book, and we'll talk about it in class as well. There is technology out there that can also help in these new literacies. We have digital literacy now, which is completely different than when I was growing up. But there are these technology-assisted programs that help with fluency. They can read books to students and then practice reading with it, so they can model fluent reading. We can also even record ourselves reading things and play it back for them. And so technology-assisted reading for fluency development, of course, is a solution. It is not the perfect solution or the best solution, but it is one that can be utilized, again, as your centers or some extra time that students might have to be able to work with the technology, okay? But those pieces out there now are very much self-directed, one-to-one fluency practice for the students. We want one-to-one fluency practice, what we really want, self-directed. But the technology does work with that. You can work to make that self-directed. And that is Chapter 5. We will talk about many different ways to focus on fluency in the classroom. So see you soon.